We're behind the blue curtain. We're live here. Here. Hello, welcome to some Derps Talk About Games. I'm your co-host, Mango.
And I am your co-host, Buddy.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about the breadth and width of Baldur's Gate 3, but before we do that, Buddy, why don't you focus on what it is we do on this podcast?
On this podcast, we like to play games. And yeah, we're, listen, we're hot on the heels, okay? Slowpoke.jpg of the coolest new release, and that release is Baldur's Gate 3 from three months ago, basically, right? Not Spider-Man, which came out over the weekend, and that everybody's talking about. We're finally getting into, the back half of Baldur's Gate 3.
What are you talking about, Spider-Man? No one cares about Spider-Man. The real release over the weekend was Super Mario Wonder.
Oh, true. Actually, have you played it?
Actually, I just played it for half an hour before we jumped on this. So
low key, I actually was thinking about playing this one, just because I have a, I have a Switch. I have a Switch, and I heard it was a good time. But Baldur's Gate 3. So in our first episode on Baldur's Gate 3, we covered the first half of the game basically, but Mango hadn't done a lot in the back half, so now this is us talking. This is going to be us talking about the back half of Baldur's Gate 3. I guess we just do a spoiler warning here, right?
Spoilers for the end of BG3.
I do think I want to say, really important, keep yourself unspoiled for this game. I have a lot of criticisms of Baldur's Gate 3 in the back half. I'm probably going to be pretty mean to the game, at least compared to a lot of sort of the fawning praise that the game has kind of gotten. And I think part of that, I guess I would say, is going to be it would have been so much worse if I had spoiled myself. So if you have not played the game and you plan to, my recommendation would be don't listen to me right here, right now.
I agree. I think the only thing I will say pre-spoilers, because this is like a kind of system agnostic criticism. What difficulty did you play the game on, buddy?
Normal.
Did
you play Tactician?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I try and play. I don't like changing difficulty midstream. The one thing I will say is I thought the game was way too easy by the end of it. This was not with me trying to hyper optimize anything. But that is I have heard that is true of even people playing on Tactician. Did you watch Trin Immortal's review of Baldur's Gate 3?
No, he reviewed Baldur's Gate 3.
He was very effusive, but his also one of his criticisms was that the game was too easy, and he was playing on Tactician, so I will take that on faith.
Okay, I know why that's the case. We can talk about that, but I don't know. Do you want to start there?
Yeah. So should we put it?
Yeah. So here's why that happens. I know
should we put the hard spoiler warning here? That was my pre-spoiler.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Hard spoilers.
Spoiler warning. Okay. The reason I had this thought, and I think I talked about this in the cast when I was playing Kingmaker. I had this thought around Pathfinder Kingmaker. The reason is, in my opinion, that Baldur's Gate gets easy as you get into these higher difficulties and into these higher sort of levels, is the mechanics of the game being just a little bit different when you control everybody in the party, right? So this is something that I talked about when I talked about the haste spell. The haste spell in Pathfinder is really powerful, right? And it makes Kingmaker a breeze. As long as you have somebody who can cast haste in the party, you just, before every fight, you haste the party, and you could just 2-man it a lot of the time. You just have a couple of guys who do their full attacks. Everybody can position effortlessly because they have double the movement speed, all this other sort of stuff. The reason haste is so powerful in Pathfinder is because in a group setting, being a caster and casting a powerful buff is not super fun. Casting a buff is not super fun. It is more fun to cast Fireball than to cast Haste. And these are fungible spells. These are 3rd level spell slots, right? So part of the way that you make Haste a fun spell to cast is you make it really strong. Haste is almost always going to be worth more raw damage to your party than Fireball will be, in terms of
if you cast it on somebody else. Right, because that's the other thing too, right? It's like haste in 5th edition is a single target spell, right? At least at the levels that you can play in BG3, and like
Yeah.
it is like casting haste on Karlach and then like going and making sure you don't get your concentration broken is like a great use of your wizard, right? No player wants to do that. Be like, I cast haste and then I like, hide in a hole, right? Like,
Yeah, and that is on the nerfed version of haste that's in 5th edition. I'm talking about, Pathfinder
yeah,
haste, which is like insanely powerful.
and
And
not
it talks to the relationship between a 1-player party and a 5-player party, right?
yeah.
You don't have to manage party politics in a version of the game where you have 5 people controlling 5 different characters, all of whom probably have different ideas on how they want to approach each individual combat encounter, right? Not just on the raw mechanics level, right? It's likely that your wizard is going to want to hang back and cast spells while your barbarian is going to want to run for it and do attacks, right? But just like on a raw kind of enjoyment level, right? What does the wizard and the barbarian have competing incentives a lot of the time in the party politics of a 5-person party? All of that evaporates under a single 1-person party. The other piece of this is that you have discrete control over the builds of all characters in the party, right? So, for instance, if I want to build, I actually have a great example of this off here. No, a good one. A good one is, if I want to build Shadowheart as a support tank kind of sneak attack bot for my character, which is a rogue, I have discrete control over every aspect of Shadowheart's character in order to build her to that effective role, right? Whereas in a true D&D party with real D&D party politics, nobody, people will play towards synergies. That's a common, that's a common thing. It's a good thing in the system, right? And it feels good when you can say, oh, hey, I know that you do this thing, so I'm going to do that thing because it's going to synergize really well, right? But there is still a barrier to that, right? And it's pretty rare that you're going to find somebody who is going to build their entire character around some other character doing massive, massive damage, right? It is possible on a single person party to build Shadowheart as a sneak attack bot for your rogue. That kind of thing is much less probable in a multi-person, in the 5-player party, right? And as you level up, you get more sort of levers for this tuning, right? Which is the reason why the end game feels so broken, essentially. Because you start with fewer decisions and you end with a cumulative whole of hundreds of decisions, right? Those hundreds of decisions can be so meticulously refined that the state of the party at level 12, where you have built every single character to fill specific purposes that are maximally optimized and efficient with one another, is just like the game's balance can't keep up with something on that scale, even if theoretically speaking, even if the game is on tactician difficulty.
So the only place I'm going to disagree with you there is like, I think you could build a difficulty to hit that, right? Because like it's not like the tactician difficulty is limited by like what you're describing is like why like you soloing a pre-published D&D adventure would be trivial under if you had one person control over the party, right? You could make a more difficult game, right? Like you could set the difficulty higher for players playing the game. Playing the game of Baldur's Gate 3, the difficulty. So I don't know if I don't think that's insurmountable, but I see what you're saying. I think a lot of that has more to do with the fact that like there are a lot of powerful consumables in the game, and you can't kind of like you have to kind of assume. I think in order to keep you from like doing like this is like less than a soft lock, but like difficulty locking your run, you have to assume that everybody like that every party is going to the fight with like 0 spells prepared and like no consumables, and maybe not quite that bad, but because of that, the difficulty has to skew a little bit easier, right? Again, yeah. I think you could opt to have like an insano difficulty where you could potentially have like have to go back a couple hours so you don't have enough consumables to fight the fight. But I don't think any developer wants to put that as like a Like, if a developer puts that in the game, it's like unlocked after you beat the game, not available from the beginning type of thing. Because like no developer wants to be like, yeah, it's too hard. I can't actually beat this game. Um, so I think that contributes more to it because I think they approached the right difficulty level in the early game, right? I have heard from several people that like Act 1 on Tactician is actually hard and requires a lot of like forethought and resource management, and it's hard to do, right? So that I could like I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's tough to do, and also like developers are hesitant to do it.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. So the thing that I'm sort of relying on when I talk about like the game is I'm talking about like the published rules of D&D are built
Right.
for a certain level of balance.
Yes.
And Baldur's Gate, it doesn't not, like I think the end game is probably harder than a real fifth edition. If a real 5th edition party was walking into Baldur's Gate's Act 3, they would probably have a much harder time with it than like the game version, right? Just because I think the game makes a lot of quality of life changes that favor the player, that make the player more powerful, right? So things like being able to change your prepared spells kind of at a moment's notice, right? That is a pretty discrete buff to wizards, right? And you never get into the kind of situation where like this is the kind of thing that happens all the time in 5e where you kind of prepared the wrong slot of spells and you have to figure out creative use for the spells that you did end up preparing because we're doing the Steel Watch refinery today and it turns out the Steel Watch are all immune to my lightning damage, and I prepared a bunch of lightning bolts for no reason, right? And like, these are kinds of negotiations that kind of happen in D&D all the time, but like the way Baldur's Gate 3 handles it is just sidestepping the issue and giving you the opportunity to, these things are weak to acid, why don't we get out of combat and I'll just change my shit to acid damage, or whatever the case may be, in order to sort of solve individualized encounters that way.
Yeah, I mean, also part of that too is like just like the video game-ness of it, right? Like, something that the Angry GM talks about is like, people like waste a lot of like ink trying to find a solution for the 15-minute adventuring day. And there are like things you can like do to like cut down on that. But the biggest thing you can do is like give your world enough verisimilitude that like it feels bad to do a 15-minute adventuring day. And it feels like that like you aren't behaving like a real person, and that will break your immersion, so you naturally force yourself through that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and that's true of every D&D game that I've played recently. We have I don't know. There's never been a position where we were like, we shouldn't rest because we didn't use all of our spell slots or anything like that, right? It's about creating that immersive world where you want to sleep during the night, you want to make a watch, you want to make a bunch of progress during the day, like all of that stuff I think is true, and it's a lot of what I spoke to when we originally talked about Baldur's Gate, where I talked about never long resting, right?
Yeah, no, I that's the thing that I want to compliment Baldur's Gate on is like there are like even like I think someone went and tested, and there aren't really a lot of like time limits, right? There are a couple, but like nothing really prevents you from long resting, but the game gives you like kind of like the feel that you probably shouldn't do that, right? Without that actually being a real constraint, and so that's a compliment in its favor. But I also think those types of barriers start to break down very quickly when you're on a difficulty that is explicitly meant to be difficult, right? Like if you are just like doing the combat engine and it's just for the combat engine's sake, I feel like you have a lot more license as a player, right? In the kind of like fiction of the universe, right? Because the fiction of the universe becomes less important, you have more, you give yourself more permission to long rest, to like put yourself at full resources more time. This combines with things like, you go to the Steel Watch and you discover you are everything's immune to lightning bolt, right? Like even if you don't like, you can disengage and get away and it's not a problem, right? Like but like the thing that actually happens isn't even like the video game mechanics being like, oh, I don't know what was stuck, is you hit F8, you load your last save file, and you change out all your spells, like you said, right? Like they take out the step where like the hardcore gamer, instead of switch it, goes rest, switches out of spells, they let them do that part without having to do that nonsense. But like the gaminess aspect of that, right? You can't you can't actually TPK a party in BG3 because you can load the game, right? Like a TPK in a tabletop session sometimes ends the campaign, sometimes like means you re-roll new characters, right? But like you can't like load from a previous state like you can, and that's I think where like the single biggest hard point where like tabletop rules hit against computer rules. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that yeah, and it's also because you can be responsive as an in-person GM, but you can't be responsive as like the game state, right? We talked about
Yeah.
how part of, the magic of Baldur's Gate is that the computer does account for quite a lot, in your ability to kind of think through problems dynamically and all that other sort of stuff. But it will never be able to sort of react entirely dynamically to the sort of decisions that you can make, because as a GM, if I know if my players walk into the steel refinery or whatever, and he's like, oh, I thought lightning was going to be good against these guys, it turns out they're immune, now I have 3 lightning bolts. Well, now all of a sudden as a GM, I can find ways where that person can use lightning bolt in an interesting, unique context on the fly, right? I could do a thing where it's like, well, they roll some sort of check, like an arcana check, and they find, oh, well, actually, the machinery of the system above is unpowered, but enough electricity could send it into overdrive, right? And it's like,
Or if the
you
player
lightning
thinks
bolt
of
the
that,
receptor. Yeah.
right? Like
Um,
the player thinks of that, and you can't, you can't handle all, like, even though Baldur's Gate does a pretty good job of giving you a lot of alternatives, which I think actually fall off a lot towards the end of this game, which is another criticism. But it tries, right? Like, but you can't do everything, right?
yeah.
Like, actually, maybe
Oh,
that's
really? That's actually an interesting point. You think that the game kind of falls off in its
is
sort of
breadth.
branching paths?
It is
Okay.
breadth, yeah. I think at the very end there's some like very cool set pieces. Um, and I think it gives you a. I think there are moments at the end that feel like the whole first act feels like the closest thing to a TTRPG I've played in a while, right? Most of the second and third act feel like a classic CRPG to me with like bright spots, but that's just kind of like that feels like first act got 3 years of early access, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I think they did similar work on some of the stuff in the last act, but I think a lot of it just doesn't quite feel that way. It feels like there's like a number of other options, but not like um, it doesn't feel so complete like it. And maybe that's also because like as a player, when you get to higher level, you can think of ways that you would solve this problem, right? That like the game just can't handle. Whereas like you naturally have less options at a lower level, um, that type of thing. But I feel like the options felt less as I went on.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, especially because as I came to understand the story more, I guess it felt like we were kind of pinholed into one direction. Whereas the driving thrust of the early game, you really do have, you can sort of turn the Goblin Town into your uh home base, and you can attack the tieflings. You know what I mean? Like you have a lot of different options to kind of like how you approach that sort of thing. I haven't technically done the evil playthrough that I theoretically want to do. It's one of those things where I want to get like the perfect 4-player party, and I don't even know who this would be. A bunch of people who have already played through the game, but we haven't played Evil, and we'll play Evil sort of like together or something. I don't know. It's just like I theoretically want to do that, just to sort of like understand a little of the direction of the story, as it goes to sort of that point. But I feel like at the end of the day, I'm going to be doing the same things just for different motivations. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, instead of me it's a good example of this. Instead of me, I don't know, solving the murders for um Orin, who is the like chosen of Baal, right? Um, I am going to kill her and take her stuff because I want to control the Netherite crown myself or whatever. And it's like that's technically the same thing I was doing in my good playthrough, right? Where we were
Right.
trying to be good boys. But I'm
Yeah,
just doing it because for selfish reasons rather than ones.
I would say like there are theoretically like paths you can take to like team up with Gortash Orin. Like, can you avoid killing Ketheric? Like, can you like fully pledge to the absolute or whatever?
Yeah, like I know that there is a paladin, Minthara the Drow paladin, in the goblin camp is a companion. If you massacre the tieflings, you can recruit her. But I have to imagine that she, like, maybe she's like a devout of the absolute or something. Like you, how I feel like you have to have the fights that you end up having against the characters that you end up having them against, because I don't get the sense that there are equivalent fights for kind of the good side in the back half of the game. Do you know what I mean?
Like theoretically, you could maybe like a fight Light's End or whatever it is, but like I don't know, you like you have to go through the temple, right? You have to go through the temple of Shar, right? And like you can let Shadowheart kill Dame Aelin, right? Like, but like at the end of the day, that's also in service of like letting somebody kill Ketheric, right? Like stripping his immortality. So I don't know how you get around that. I definitely like. There is also very obviously a version of the game where you do, where you do just do the same fights but without it. It seems to like maybe you can pick one of Gortash or Orin and like team up with them. But maybe they also turn their back on you at the end. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like both.
Yeah. I'm interested in your order. How did you like move through the major plot beats of the Act 3?
So, what did I do? I did the the Wizard Tower first, which also like kind of like I had some buggy problems with that, but that was not a super huge deal. What else did I do? I I did a bunch of side quests, right? Like I dealt with like how did you deal with the Hagen Act one? Did you do the Hagen Act one?
We killed the Hagenack one. I'm actually a little mad about this. Charles told me something that was, we did the Hagenack one 3 times. One of which was Karlach immediately shoves the hag into the hole and she dies. Which was great, but then somebody was like, actually she has a pretty cool reward or whatever. And so we went and we replayed that whole boss fight, actually killed her for real, and then it turned out that the reward he was talking about was you can make a bargain where she'll give you a skill point, like an ability point.
Right.
Which I did not take because I was like, why am I going to fucking deal with this hag? So she died, but then she did pop up in Act. We did find her in Act 3.
Oh, she survives anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I did the bargain with her and she showed up in Act 3 and then I, murdered her there, right? Like I did.
Okay.
I did that whole bit. Felt very bad about the dead husband. Like it was kind of, it's like, oh, you're never gonna be all right again, right? Did you do any of that? Did you
we found her before? So you're talking about Mayrina, right? With the dead husband or whatever. Okay, we found Ethel before we found Mayrina. So we found Ethel, killed Ethel, did all this stuff in the bottom of the, that pirate ship place. And then later on, we found Mayrina and the others, and she was like, "You have to help us fight this hag." And I was like, "Hag's dead." And they were like, "Oh my god."
Okay. But so you didn't like her storyline is like she gives like she like deals with the hag because she's convinced the hag can bring her husband back to life. And the thing the way that she does that is like, or the way that the hag was planning on doing that was like basically giving her a wand that would let her resurrect her husband's corpse as a zombie, and you can give her the wand. And
we did do that in the first act, yeah.
Okay, yeah, she did the same thing. I gave it to her on the site, and she rezzed her husband. Well, not rezzed, but like rose him up, and like you meet her in Act 3, and her husband's still there, right? But the end of that storyline for her, I don't know what you got, but for me, it was like, her being like, "You're right, he's not real. I have to let you go. You're not my husband anymore. I have to let you go." Which is funny because after that cutscene where she like lets him disintegrate, he's still standing there because I guess the game bugged out or something.
I don't remember if we got that cutscene, but I think it's because we did the quest first. We didn't. Okay, yeah, it's because we did that. We did the quest first, and we just like went and told her that Hathel was already dealt with, and so her answer was just like, okay.
Yeah, I think
and
there
then
was
they all left.
I would say I think there was a persuasion check involved, being like gotta let go type of deal.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I did that. I basically did a bunch of side quests. Like the first thing I did in the Act 3 was like get into the sewers and like do all of the sewers, which is probably
Oh, that's interesting. We did all of the sewers at the very, very end. We were actually kind of surprised there was so much to do in the sewers when we got down there.
So what happened is like I on the quest to like find to like warn all the people on the murder list. I talked to the cook, and the cook's like, there are rats in the basement. So I went and I like killed the rats. And that was also on the way to the Emperor's like old.
Oh yeah, his like little house.
Yeah. And so since I was already down there, this is also when like Orange was like a kidnapped Lae'zel. Who did she kidnap for you?
She kidnapped Lae'zel for us.
Okay.
This is part of why we didn't long rest for so long, because we thought that if we long rest, Lae'zel would die. So we did Orin in our first. We did Orin in our first day. We did the whole of Baldur's Gate in 2 days, a long rest right before we got there, and then a long rest right after we killed Orin.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because Orin kidnapped Lae'zel, and we were like, well, if we
rest.
If we rest, then Lae'zel will die.
No, Lou in the chat says, I killed the sister chick. Which sister chick is this?
I don't know. Oh, we didn't long rest so much in Act 2 that they force rested us like 3 times in a row. Yes, that okay, that is true. But that was before we got to the city, right? Was that in the city? There were a bunch of times where we had to rest before entering the city, and you end up like talking and doing this whole thing. And you find out the Emperor is actually a mind flayer, which we fucking knew the whole time. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, that's not the reason we didn't long rest. Yeah, that was. We were already pretty committed to not long resting at that point, but it was part of the calculus towards our long resting aversion, was trying to keep Lae'zel alive, because I don't know, I thought that she would die, which actually kind of sucked because I like Lae'zel a lot in the party. She was pretty good, pretty useful. But yeah.
Yeah. So Lou in the chat says the sister chick is the hag's captive. I thought that was the daughter of the woman. Is that who you're talking about, Lou? Anyway. I managed to save the daughter, but like, the first the sister chick is Mayrina, the wife. Lou apparently killed Mayrina, like the wife of the zombie husband. Yeah, interesting,
brutal.
But yeah. Anyway, so to wind all the way back, I did a bunch of this side content. I did the sewers. I ended up killing, like, when you fought Minsk, did he have like a whole posse with him in that back room? I had already killed them.
That fight was bugged as fuck, by the way.
Okay, I would say like I had already killed 5 of them because they were there. Like I had gone into that back area and I killed 5 of them, and then when I went there with Minsk, it was just Minsk, the woman from like the mercenary selling company, and like fake Jaheira. So that fight was like trivial.
Wait, who are the extra people back there?
So
do you just mean like nameless NPCs back there?
There was like a gang of like absolute cultists type deal.
Okay, yeah. That gang was there. We did fuck up that quest because we didn't approach the sewers. We approached it from the back room. The back is a door that leads to the upside of the thing, and it's locked. And I lock-picked that door, and we came in from that back, and then we triggered this cutscene, and we're like, oh, what? And depending on how you do that fight, we had to do that fight 2 or 3 times because we kept killing Minsk.
Right.
even when we were using like non-lethal damage, it was such a fucking disaster. It was so hard. We eventually got to a point where we just CC'd him a bunch, I think. Like we slept him or something like that in order to, and we were running around and it was literally like Minsk is wailing on me, but I can't touch him because I don't want to bring him too low before we do all this other sort of stuff. Yeah, that was a huge pain.
See, I found that fight relatively like easy, not just because of like the other things were dealt with, but because like I do it 2 or 3 times because like I would down him and then like the encounter would end, and like he would trigger on like one of like the other characters, right? And like be like, and then you have to do like a social check to make him like not rage out, and like if you non-lethal him a second time, he just dies.
Yes, that is what happened to us. Yeah, we also had this thing where the cutscene auto completed before we did anything else. And so it was a whole mess, that whole cutscene. To be honest with you, I don't like Minsk. I think Minsk is lame and uncool. I understand why he's like a fan favorite character, and he probably would have been a fan favorite character if I played Baldur's Gate
1
in
Yeah.
however many like years ago. But like his thing of like, oh, I'm so crazy, I have this accent and I like my hamster, it's like it reminds me of like it's like Control Alt Delete comics from the early 2000s, like that level of kind of humor. It's like lol random humor, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting
Yeah.
at or whatever. And I found that a little insufferable, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a big part of that is like there just wasn't as much writing back when Baldur's Gate 1 came out, like just like pure kind of like you would click on Minx and he would say go for the eyes, boo, and that was like 90% of what you heard out of him because like there just wasn't as much stuff to do with him, right? Like, um, and also like you said, and Lou in the chat is the defending him on the case that it's Matt Mercer, I guess, who voiced him. I don't know. I actually thought he sounded wrong. So sorry, Lou, but he didn't sound like he sounded bad.
Damn.
He didn't
Get fucked. Okay.
he didn't sound like what I remember he sounded like in Baldur's Gate 1. And that's probably entirely wrong. I'm probably remembering it wrong, but it doesn't match my memories, so the nostalgia was not hit right, so it's bad.
I do want to compliment the voice acting. Specifically, I don't even know that I need to do this. Ketherick Thorm was the greatest, and I love that they actually got J.K. Simmons for this. J.K. Simmons is just so good at everything. But like, man, I think the highlight of the game for me was maybe Act 2, Ketherick Thorm, all of that stuff. He just felt like a real villain's villain. He had that like kind of tragic villain motivation and stuff. You had this like thing of his immortality that you had to kind of like deal with and all this stuff. There's that crazy twist where that the tower is like fucked up and like it's like mind flare colony and all this other sort of stuff, but like seeing it kind of happen in real time is just cool as fuck. God. Yeah.
Yeah. So to go through the other things I did, just because I do want to do this, because
okay, yes.
there's a point. I think so. I rescued Counselor Floric, right?
We did not. Oh, we did do that actually in the very end, but
the way I did this is I walked up to the front gate and I just like knocked out every single flaming fist, right? Like I tried to like pick the door open and there's people on the other side, right? So I was like, oh well, fuck it. And I just like knocked everyone out, let her out the back, and like got her home. The reason I mention this is because I then do that area that's kind of like the base of the tower, right? Like the seaside around there. That's when I do all of that, and I find a couple different things. One of which is relevant. I think I do the dragon before I deal with anything else, right? Which involves me like I did some other side quests in the middle. No, did I do? I forget exactly what order I did things in, but I think I did the so I did the I did uh, the underwater prison, which I thought was super neat, right? Like I thought that was like I was not expecting that, right? Like I got brought over there by doing like the kind of like the water lady was swimming and I got hit by a metal beast type thing, right? I did that quest. Brought me to that area. I um did that whole thing. Took me a couple tries to get the result I wanted, which is saving Omala or whatever his name is. And
Yeah,
like
I hate this so much. Yeah.
I saved every Gondian. I just didn't do any of the looting stuff because like whatever, right? Um and then like I also like I had to redo it a couple times because like I saved Will's dad even though I had told what's her nuts to you know go pound salt like you know to, like basically I get the cutscene where like because Will chooses Will, right? Like I show up and then like she shows up and she's like, well, deal's a deal. Gotta kill the dad now. And I save him with some like fuckery, which involves like dimension door and not giving a fuck.
This is, when I mentioned that we fucked up our game, this is the part that we like turbo fucked up. We did the Iron Throne stuff before any of that stuff in the tower, in the Worm's Tower or whatever, Worm's Rest, I think is what it's called. Which means we did the Iron Throne before we saved everybody in the Iron Throne, but Will's dad is not there, I guess, unless you like trigger that cutscene. And I think that just breaks everything. That's why all of those quests were so fucked for us.
I see. Interesting. Yeah, that would be fucked, right? Like,
yeah, because like, did you attend the coronation?
yes. Yeah. No. Specifically because you warned me. That was like I like did it when it came up. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we had the quest for attending the coronation, but by the time when we got there, and I think it's because the Iron Throne was already completed, when we got there, all of the Flaming Fists were hostile to us. We couldn't interact with anything, and the quest just stayed attend the coronation to the end of the game.
Okay.
We were confused because we figured like he was down there, and we tried it like 8 times and couldn't get it to work. Yeah.
So funnily enough, my Gortash thing got all fucked, but like just to kind of finish the loop, I do the dragon thing. Like the thing to point out here is like I snuck behind the guards who were all facing forwards, right? Because I had knocked them all out, right? Like they were awake and facing forward. One of them sees me and is like, "Why are you sneaking?" And like doesn't aggro on me, even though they're all like pump is hostile. I get to that back area, I do the dragon thing. Dragon fight was pretty cool. That might be my favorite fight just because like it was a clean dragon fight, right? Like as opposed
to... Oh my god. I had the funny story about this fight, but continue.
But after I do that, what I do is you can climb a set of vines on the outside to like break into like the back of like the Gortash fight, right? Or break into the back part of like the Gortash area. But what happens is I break in, but I don't sneak because someone's waiting there, right? And again, I kill all of like the black fists or whatever they are, but I try and leave as many of the civilians up as possible, but they don't enter the turn order. So I get stuck in this fucking thing where like I am in turn order by myself because all of like the civilians are aggroed and aren't actually in turn order, but they count as it. So like slowly make my way across the top of the I jump up to the top of the tower. I make my way around the parapet. I go on the front where Gortash is, and like he's standing there, and then I hit him, and like the boss cutscene, or there's not even a cutscene. Like the boss fight just starts happening because like he's in combat with us. Yeah, it kind of doesn't work the way I'm sure it's supposed to, but that whole thing was a clusterfuck. And then I killed him. I picked something up. And basically I had to go back and forth to camp. Like in order to exit combat, I had to escape to camp with all my individual characters individually. And then came back. Then Karlach's like, he's dead. I want to see his body. Even though she's the one who got the killing blow on him. Right? At which point, she's like, he's dead. He's like, I can't believe it. And then she runs away again. So I have to go back to camp again to talk to her.
Yeah. That's actually pretty funny. It's funny, that dragon fight, I actually don't super remember this dragon fight, but here's the thing that I remember about the dragon fight. We were playing basically every day, me and Rachel. It was after work. We would just get on. We would just like play. And then it would hit around midnight and we would find a natural sort of stopping point. But unfortunately, we had discovered that dragon kind of crypt area with like the puzzles and everything. We discovered that at maybe midnight, and we just kind of were like, we'll just do this. We'll finish this out real quick, and then we'll go to bed. And so it's like 1:30 in the morning. Okay, when we're actually doing the dragon fight, we had been, and keep in mind, this was maybe the very last thing, maybe one of the final things we did after on our second day, because it was all, we basically saved the Worm's Rock thing until the very end, which is why the save got so fucked up, or the state of the game got so fucked up or whatever, and we got that bug. So we were turbo out of resources at that point, and this fucking dragon aggro's on the party, and we're just like, okay, I guess we're fighting the dragon. It has a gazillion HP. And then there's that one piece of the phase where he creates the rock walls. Where he creates the rock walls. Did you not see this part?
I think I killed him too fast.
Really? Okay. Yeah, there's a part where he flies into the air and he creates these rock walls, and the mechanic is he's going to do a big breath attack and you stand behind the rock wall, right? And our whole party was so fucked up at this point because we'd killed like everybody in Worm's Rock Fortress at this point, including I think maybe Gortash. And we were all so fucked up, and I was at like 25 like HP or something like this. But we were standing behind the rock wall, and I was like, what if I was thinking in terms of WoW mechanics. I was like, oh, we're not going to take any damage because we're behind the rock wall or whatever. But then I was like, you know what? It's a D&D thing. Maybe they'll hit us with half damage, and I should just be topped off for this. So instead of using my second bonus action to attack with my hand crossbow, I chug a potion to go to full health. Turns out that is how the crystal wall, everybody in the party dies except for me. And the dragon comes back down. I'm just like, holy shit, I'm glad I drank that potion. Then we kill the dragon. It was so funny to like get this fucking dragon out of absolutely nowhere. And then you have that whole conversation where you find out that actually the emperor is Baldur of Baldur's Gate. Yeah.
Yeah, Baldur.
Yeah, Baldur. Yeah.
That happens before you fight the dragon because the dragon's all mad, right? The dragon.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, it's funny because we fucking hated the Emperor. We never slurped any tadpoles. We didn't even get the tadpole slurping menu because we kept telling the Emperor to fuck off. And at the very end of the game, to be fair, I think it.
Araya in the chat says I should be on this podcast exclusively to complain about how fucking stupid him being Mr. Baldur Gate was. Honestly, yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, and then at the very end of the game, the Emperor turned on us. I guess because we had told him to fuck off so many times, and then we didn't. Did you free? What did you do with Prince Orpheus?
Oh, I just like never did any of that quest line. I was like,
oh, so you didn't even get the hammer?
No.
Oh my god.
So I think part of that is that it was bugged out. Like I found the Diabolist, but she wouldn't like talk to me about like the quest, right? Like she's just like a Diabolist, right? Like working her shop or whatever.
Yeah.
Lou in the chat says this is so weird to listen to. I don't think I broke more than one quest. So this is I think part of what I'm talking about when I say that like the breath falls off at the end. Maybe it doesn't like fall off in breath in concept so much as like things break when you start doing things. Like I was like, I'll be clever. I will climb up the back and like just like fight Gortash, and everything just kind of breaks at that point. And so I guess it did let me do it, right? It recovered gracefully from that, but like, you didn't
even break the fireworks guy. We fucked up the fireworks guy. This is the thing I was talking about, where when you first enter, you talk to that toy maker, and we killed the toy maker, but we just had that hanging quest or whatever. Obviously, all of Will's quest was just hanging. I know we had a bunch of bullshit like that. But you never fought Raphael, is what that means.
Oh no, I never got to fight Raphael, because like the last thing I had for him was like he was like, come back if you wanna like take my deal. I did like fuck up the fireworks people, but like I yeah, how do you fight Raphael?
Yeah, so okay, when you meet the Diabolist, you can convince her to let you into the House of Hope, which is like Raphael's place. She'll like give you a back door in there. So we took the back door, and then when you kill a bunch of people, you steal the hammer, you're leaving. Raphael shows up for a big crazy boss fight. What did you do with the gnomes? Did you get the enslaved gnomes, and did you find them in Baldur's Gate?
I did, and I was hanging out with my buddy Brachus, right? I was like I like save them all for Brachus, even though like what's his nuts is like a big racist against I don't know
Did he give you the runic bomb or whatever?
yes.
Okay, that's what we used against Raphael. Raphael's boss fight has these 4 pillars, okay? And the pillars are sturdy, which means they take double damage from like force damage or whatever.
Right.
And he spawns in with a million guys. He spawns in with like a bunch of like backup or whatever. Including, funnily enough, I guess it was the guy that we fought, the crossbow guy that you fight in
Oh, in
the temple.
yeah.
Yeah. He shows up as well. We convinced him to join our side with a sweet persuasion check, though. Anyway, so we show up. Raphael shows up, and he's doing this thing where he's like stealing souls out of these pillars or whatever. The pillars take like extra damage from force damage. I was using a hand crossbow that dealt force damage. So I blew up one of the pillars immediately. But then I was like, oh my god, Late Cell has the bomb. She just has that room powder bomb. So we threw the room powder bomb into the room and then detonated it. It blew up everything. It blew up all the pillars, killed a bunch of the guys, just set everybody to like 0 health. And then we just like sat there and like beat on Raphael the whole time. It's maybe my favorite moment in the back half of the game was using this bomb that they had given you for its like unintended purpose.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I'm sad I kind of missed out on that.
Yeah.
I did want to fuck Raphael up because he was kind of a bitch. But I just kind of
You
forgot
could
about
fuck him if you want. If you actually wanted to fuck him.
Oh,
Okay.
I fucked Will's Temptress. Like right after like she tried to kill his dad. I'm like, yeah, I'll fuck.
Wow. Okay. We didn't fuck anybody. We got 0 fucks.
Yeah. Will was not very happy with me. But
that's actually pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Shadowheart was like, it's okay, just like let me know next time.
Yeah. Halston really wanted to fuck me, and I was like, no.
Everybody really wanted to fuck me without me like putting any effort in, right? Like Halston was like you're hot. I was like, what are you talking about? I've talked to you like 3 times, right? And like the Emperor was kind of like, so how's it going? And I'm like, what are you fucking doing?
Yeah, okay, so what we ended up doing was we freed Orpheus from the prison. We used the hammer to free Orpheus from the prison. And then Orpheus turned himself into a mind flayer in order to like channel the netherite stuff or whatever, right? There's this thing where it was like, I'll do it, and he was like, no, I'll do it for my people. It's more important than that. So we did end up with a mind flayer. It just happened to be Orpheus. And the Emperor was just like, you know what? I have given you so much advice, but I'm a spiteful bitch. So I'm going to go fight for the crown. I'm going to go fight for the Elderbrain. And he swapped sides, and it made 0 sense in the story, but I guess it was fine. So what happened was the Emperor showed up in that final fight scene. He was riding the big dragon that comes down when you're fighting on top of the brain. We killed him, little bitch.
Wait, Orion in the chat says, if you're as mean as possible, him in that cutscene reveals that he mind controlled his old friend who he talked about. You mean like the counselor?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh wow, I did not get that. Wow. That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah. He sucks, the Emperor.
Yeah, no,
I kind of feel like the Emperor is a little Schrodinger's Emperor, to be honest with you. I feel like he sucks. Yeah, that's true, because I was at least medium nice. I was not
yeah,
full on mean to the Emperor.
like you said, Schrodinger's Emperor. I feel like the canonicity of what he does changes, like based on like
Mm-hmm.
how like it goes out, which is interesting. Because like it's not presented as like a bad ending when you like. So what I did is I didn't give a fuck about Prince Orpheus. I gave Karlach the Mind Flayer tadpole, um, because like she volunteered and like theoretically it would hold off her like her engine
Yeah,
from
she wouldn't
exploding.
die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so like I gave her the tadpole and she eats Orpheus's brain and like we go fuck things up. Um, oh yeah, like that if you don't free Orpheus, somebody has to go like absorb Orpheus in order to like
Wow.
have the power to deal with the brain.
Yeah, sure.
But like
Okay.
I went into that final fight with like Mind Flayer Karlach and like also the Emperor as like a companion or as like a pet, I guess. Um, in that pet slot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, so I think I've told you about this off the cast, but like I tried to do that final fight a couple of times, and like it's like, oh no, you gotta like get there, right? And so like I baited out the counter spell from like the wizard, from the wizard countermeasure guy, right? I used Shadowheart's divine intervention to like murder house most of like the countermeasures, and then just like bum rushed the portal. Um, and once everybody's inside, so I used call allies once, which is a shame because I thought that was a neat mechanic. I just like didn't get to use it. Um, I used the call allies to like basically like be meat bodies while I opened the portal and jumped everybody inside. And then like it stops going outside. Like I was like, are they gonna follow me in here? No. I just like hammered on the brain for like 2 turns, right? Like Karlach just like doing power attacks, too good. Like you didn't even have to use any of the fancy mind flayer shit. It's like Karlach, turn
Yeah,
on power attack and hit harder.
we fought a bunch of stuff right in the front, which honestly was a huge pain and it took forever. But we did a bunch of that. And we summoned some people for that, but they didn't die, and you can resummon them again
Right.
if they don't die. So we were like, oh well, we'll just kind of summon people as necessary. Uh, Also the broken ass allies because they were mad at me. What? I don't remember that.
Oh,
Um,
I have a great bug. Oh, what happened? What happened with your speech in the room? I want to know. When you get into the room where everybody's like, and I, where they do like, like the, and I'll be with you.
Oh my god, that bug was so frustrating. Yes. I think this is because we fucked up the stuff with the flaming fist. Here's what I think happened. Because we never dealt with any of this like Gortash stuff correctly, the flaming fist auto aggroed to us, okay? Um, and when you free the counselor from jail, which we did, she becomes an ally and she brings with her Flaming Fist guys. But the Flaming Fist guys were like coded to fucking hate us. So we had to sneak past. Oh, and then the Flaming Fist guy aggroed on us. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I killed the Flaming Fist guy. And then all of our allies turned on me. I was like, the fuck? Jesus Christ. So we reloaded that save. And we had to do this thing where I like triggered the cutscene. Everybody like moved past or something like that. And then I had to like sneak past him without touching him so that we didn't get into combat. We just left him there as like an aggroed entity. It's the dumbest bug. I hated it. It was so frustrating to deal with.
So did you give a speech? Did you like?
I don't know. I don't remember. I think we gave a speech the first time.
Okay. So my speech thing was super fucking funny, right? Because like you get there and like and my axe scene goes on for forever if you've done like any significant amount of the side content, and like it feels funny, right? It's like and I'm here too, right? But the funny thing that happens is I give my speech, right? And it's kind of like a dumb speech, right? But like the cheering sound effect plays, but it like does that thing where it it's like it was like some like somebody's like college project. It's like yeah, 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 like 3 or 4 times in a row. It plays like the cheering sound effect. It's like,
Yeah, we that's interesting. Yeah, we had a million allies. By that point, we had, I guess, we maybe had all of the allies that we like kind of possibly could have gotten.
you didn't have Will's dad, I think, obviously.
Oh yeah, we wouldn't have had Will's dad. That's true. But we
Yeah.
had I don't know. We had a lot of people, I guess. And then when we got to the final fight, we just literally summoned everybody, put them all on the brain. But we killed it all. We murdered the dragon. We killed all of the guys. We basically cleared that whole stage out. And then we went into the portal on the brain itself. And then I think I sneak attacked the brain for like 1 billion damage, basically.
Yeah, I was just like, because summoning them took actions, I was like, I was trying to like maneuver things to like work right. But I was like, I wonder if I could just kind of bum rush it, and it worked, right? Like
I had gotten very used to popping at a certain point in the game. I realized that I had like 18 potions of speed in my inventory, and I just got very used to chugging a potion of speed and getting double actions every turn.
so
That became like a normal thing for me.
I did that until I hit the Iron Throne, and I realized they don't last for like the full length of a haste.
Yeah, they
right?
last for 3 turns, and then they stun you for 1 turn.
Right, but because that happened in the Iron Throne, right, where time is of the essence, I like kind of forsook that after that, right? Like I had a, like, you know, my main
A+ use of forsook. Way to go, bud.
We're talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, sure. Just like an incredible conjugation of like a very esoteric verb. Forsook. Hell yeah. Yeah, no, we actually did use potions of speed in the Iron Throne. But yeah, I just got very used to chugging potions of speed, getting extra action. So we were just like summoning 1 million of these guys. They were all basically basically everybody died pretty quickly. But it was just like, it just distracted the dragon long enough that we could deal with the dragon. It distracted the mind flayers long enough that we could just like deal with them or whatever. Yeah. And then, oh, did you do the Asterion quest? How did you end up with the Asterion?
Oh, I just didn't do the Asterion quest. I was like, but okay. Like I was like, and now I've got to do like Kazdor, and then I was like, I don't care. I don't like Asterion, and I want to finish this game. So instead of doing that,
the game gives you the most insane trolley problem of all time when you do that Kazdor quest. Though it has a pretty funny, like, interesting boss fight kind of mechanic that we cheesed the fuck out of, in fact. Because there are these runes on the ground when you're fighting Kazdor, and standing in the runes is good. But I had brought Halsin, I think, who I had turned into an owl bear, and Halsin had an earth element, or had a wind elemental maybe, and I think at that point Rachel was also carrying like an elemental of some variety, or maybe I had Will. We were using Conjure Elemental quite a lot, just to like have an elemental in the party. Oh, well, yeah, what you're not talking about is my fucking mage hand. Yeah, you summoned the mage hand. There are 6 of these runes, and you want to be standing in the rune every turn. So I was doing a lot of like hit and runs. I would run out, hit somebody, and then run back and end my turn standing on the rune, right? And then with stuff like the air elemental, right? I just left the air elemental on the ranged attacks or whatever. And then halfway through that fight, Rachel was like, I wonder if my mage hand, because we were tiefling, we could summon a mage hand as a racial like bonus action or whatever. I wonder if my mage hand will count as being on the rune, and it did. So Rachel summoned a mage hand and left it on one of the runes while we were like fucking on Kazdor. It was very dumb. And then and then Kazdor does this whole thing where he is going to sacrifice. The best part is the mage hand successfully got a kill. I don't remember that, but I believe you. Because they're summoning bats, right? There's these like, by winging a bat at another bat. Yeah, by throwing a bat at another bat. Okay. There's these like little 1 health bats. He summons a million up or whatever. Kazdor has turned 7,000 children, or 7,000 people, some of whom are children, into vampires. And by doing this crazy, insane ritual, he is going to turn himself from a vampire to a human, but he has to sacrifice these 7,000 vampires. And at the very end, Asterion is like, well, I could be a human again if all I did was sacrifice these babies. And I was just like, what is this trolley problem bullshit or whatever? You know what I mean? So I told, and I was honestly secretly thinking, 7,000 vampires is a lot. Should probably kill them. Like, they should probably go, actually. Getting rid of 7,001 vampires is probably for the good of the realm, right? Because just releasing 7,000 vampires into the wild is kind of a recipe for disaster. But I decided that killing 7,000 children was probably like the wrong choice. And so we told Asarian to free them. They all decided they're just going to go to the Underdark and not harm people. Okay, I guess I'll deal with that or whatever. And it turned out to be Asterian's bad ending. Because at the very end of the game, where you get that thing where he starts, you know, all of this stuff happens and he starts to like get fucked up by the sun or whatever.
I got that too.
It still happens. That's the bad ending. The good ending is you eat 7,000, you sacrifice 7,000 kids and you fucking, yeah. I was just like, okay.
7,000 babies.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's like a fucking like you know, early aughts joke, like, you know, dead baby. This is gonna be a weird pull. Did you have like when you were in like middle and high school were like dead baby jokes like really popular? Yeah, I don't know why they were very popular in my middle and high school as well.
Yeah, it feels like proto 4chan, like edgy, you know,
it's like
gore humor.
It's not even like proto 4chan, right? It's just kind of like like it was like shock humor, pure shock humor, right? Like, and they're puns too. Not puns, but like, you know, it's like the level, like, you know, what's brown and sticky? A stick, right? Like, which is like a dumb joke, but it's like basically
like anti-comedy, right? Yeah,
right. But it's like those jokes, but like with like, you know, what's like black and red, and it's like, you know, a baby beating against a tree or something, right? Like, it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, like the punchline is meant to go get somebody to go like, oh,
yeah,
he said that, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't get like, I basically was like tired of. Also, I was just like tired of like doing things by the end of the game. Like I got burned out on the game pretty hard.
Yeah, the one thing that bothered me about the Kazuto stuff is Zarahi in the chat is they're like, there's 10,000 vampires and they show like 10. Yeah, that's true. They show one. They kind of have these cages in the background, and there is one jail cell with like 4 vampires in there. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I understand that feeling of getting kind of like burned out on the game and just like wanting to just like get through it and finish it. Like we did absolutely everything on the map. I'm pretty confident that I saw every piece of Baldur's Gate. And I have since learned that there are pieces of Baldur's Gate that a lot of people didn't see. So for instance, we did the Blood of Lethlander thing. This is what I was referencing the other day in the chat, which was we did this.
What's the Blood of Lethlander thing?
It's in the bottom of the Githyanki Kresh.
Okay.
Which I don't think that you ended up doing, right? You just skipped that whole part. Yeah. We did that, and that is apparently a very rare. Like most people in their playthrough don't see it. It's not a real quest. It's just like it's just like an environmental detail thing where if you pick up that there are certain ceremonial objects and you can place them on these altars, you can figure out, oh, there's this secret hidden crypt thing, and you go down to the crypt, you get a legendary weapon sort of thing. So like I feel good about the amount that we did that game. I think that we got, you know, we kind of like got through everything, but I was definitely pretty burned out on it by the end. And it definitely lost its luster over time. You know, we talked about this in the first sort of cast on it. And I appreciate the ambition in the back half of the game, Baldur's Gate. But I appreciate the ambition, but I don't know, it just really lost me in the back end of the game. A big part of it being we hit level 12 and we're level 12 for maybe like 30 or 40 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, I feel that.
Which, to be honest with you, I don't know that I mind that, right? Like, for instance, WoW is a game that, you hit an end game and you do the end game stuff. But for some reason, it just feels very weird to play a D&D game where there's no, like, leveling up.
Yep. Nope. I totally get that. That makes sense to me. I feel mostly the same way. Um, yeah, no, Buddy was mad about Ronnie says Buddy was the maddest about the level cap. Yeah, he was mad on the podcast about the level cap like a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
He was that mad on the podcast, right? Don't you worry, we were not spared his rage.
Yeah, I'm honestly downplaying it. Yeah, I mean, all of that is just I was true. That is a true feeling, and I felt it a lot, and I was mad about it. And to be honest with you, I'm still mad about it, and I'll just die mad about it, I guess. I don't know.
So I'm curious, Buddy. Do you have any of the super rare? Do you have any like shining achievements?
Oh, let me look. Let's see.
For whatever reason, my view all achievements will not show the percentage, but I've got a couple that I can see that are super rare.
Um. Hmm. Kill the red dragon in the upper city. 10% of players got that achievement.
That's the thing that I didn't do. That's the one I skipped over.
Yeah. A lot of these people got, yeah, like Wait, what? I feel like I should have some of these. Kill the surgeon before he performs surgery on you in combat. We killed. I guess it doesn't matter if I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. I guess not. There's 17 hidden achievements that are.
But did you get any that like were done by like a very small number of people?
Yeah, I don't see any that are done by a super small number of people. Right? Like no free luncheons defeat the Apostle of Merkel or consumes any necrolytes. 26% of people have that. Even though I kind of felt like that was like a, I don't know, a medium above and beyond thing.
Yeah, no, I got first blood to kill Orin while her cultists are performing the ritual chant. That was like 13% of players apparently. My two big ones are Sarah Morphosis, make the ultimate sacrifice, become a mind flayer to defeat the Netherbrain, which I did on Karlak. And then I got leave no one behind. Save every tiefling refugee you can throughout the game in a single playthrough, which I see that Lou also has. So good job,
Wow.
Lou.
I guess we didn't do that.
Yeah. Who did you lose? Who did you let die? Was it Roland or whatever?
I don't know. Who would we have let die? Hello, Orion. Welcome to the chat, buddy. Which of the tieflings would we have let die? I think maybe we had the Hell Knight tieflings, like the paladins at the end. And maybe some of them died. I don't know.
The fucking mage asshole. Yeah, Roland or Rohan or whatever. Rahi in the chest is because the fucking mage asshole.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yes. That was also a weird interaction where we long rested.
Yeah, I did what Lou said.
Okay.
Rohan runs the mage tower now.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I almost lost him in that fight because when Dame Aelin comes in and is like, fuck you, right? Like Rohan's like, no, I'm not going to help you kill the angel lady. That's a bad idea. And like he's very fragile, but he will like run up a staircase and like stay mostly safe. Oh, he decided. So this is in Act 2, where like when you walk around, he's like in the middle of fighting something whenever you happen to walk by there. But if you don't realize it's happening, he'll die. Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. We found his body the next day, and we were just like, "Oh, okay, I guess." Yeah, okay. We just didn't. And we just didn't realize. Yeah, this was also us fucking up the lantern, where you have to kill that convoy or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just all part of that whole bit. Long resting fucks your whole life up. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because for people who didn't long rest ever, we did get kind of fucked by long resting in that one situation.
Yeah.
What was your thing with Orin?
So when Orin does like, so that one wasn't super rare apparently, but like when you do the fight with Orin, a bunch of cultists start chanting, I guess, And I
Mm-hmm.
guess when they stop doing that, something happens. But I just like murdered Orin super fast. So whatever that was, they just stopped chanting and then fought me individually, which obviously didn't go well for them.
I actually don't super remember how we did the Orin fight. Um, I think I want to say that we killed everything for. Oh, that is actually I do remember the Orin. Yeah, we killed all of the chanters first. And
Okay.
then Karlach beat Stickter to death. Yeah,
I did the same thing,
Karlach
except
basically just sat there and tanked Orin like the person or whatever. While the rest of us just went around and we did each of the individual chanters.
yeah, I mean, I that Karlach also beat Stick Orin to death for the most part. Um, but like I just had everybody beat Stick Orin to death, and it worked. Um, she had damage reduction. What did she have damage reduction from?
The chant, I think. I think that's why we did the chant. I don't actually think it was damage reduction. I think it was healing. I think she like full heals at the end of the turn, and
Maybe I just
but
managed to
she
do her in
loses
one.
it. Yeah. In my final fight, Shadowheart got left in the main room while the rest of the onto the brain. The Emperor just kept her perma CC'd for me anyway. Yeah, that's interesting. We killed the Emperor insanely quickly. At that point, my sneak attacks were just like so insane. Like I could just single target one person out of the like blow that piece of junk out of the sky stuff. And I'm pretty sure we just murdered. Oh, you dragon breathed him on turn 1. Yeah, that's true. That did happen. And also Orpheus was really powerful. When you have Orpheus in your party, he is both a mind flayer, but he's also a monk, and he's also weirdly like a druid. He could change into a displacer beast.
No,
And so there's
that's a
this whole.
mind flayer power.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so he's also a monk. So his displacer beast attacks are like monk attacks. So he shredded. He destroyed people. Orpheus was really powerful.
Interesting. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know that I have much more to talk about. That's this
yeah,
sort of where we ended up with Skate.
yeah. No, it was a super fun game. Kind of falls apart at the end, bursts at the seams, right? Like, but it was definitely fun. I definitely enjoyed it. It's definitely up there. Will probably be my game of the year, or at least one of the three as we usually do them. Um, what else could it be? It could be, I guess, Tears of the Kingdom.
Australia. It could be
Australia.
Rain World Downpour Mango.
Definitely not Rainbow Dash Empire. Sorry, buddy, but I didn't. It might like Australia is definitely up there, right? Street Fighter 6. What else?
Ooh, Street Fighter 6 is a good one. Man, it's a good question. What would at this point we're getting close, right?
Yeah.
What would my game of the year maybe be? Ooh, did Darktide come out this year? I've been really Payday 3, I guess, came
I
out.
would say you didn't like Dark Tide on launch.
Yeah, I did not like Darktide on launch. Oh, we'll talk about this in the back half. I did not like Darktide on launch, but it is
Well, we're in the
better
back half.
now.
We're at 113, so talk about it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so for back half gamers, okay,
Should I get Dark Tide?
it's on Game Pass.
Oh, is it? I don't even have
Yeah,
to pay
so I
money.
think you can just play Darktide, and I would recommend it. Darktide had a very recent update that was a class rebalance. Basically, the original thing with Darktide, especially as compared to Vermintide, was it was 4 classes, and they all behaved like Vermintide classes. Vermintide classes kind of used the old WoW talent system where you had 3 talents in a row. You could pick one of the 3 of them. You get it one every 5 levels kind of thing. But the thing that Vermintide had is that each character, you had 5 characters, and each character had 3 classes. So you had a total of 15 different sort of specializations that you could go. In Darktide, every class was the same, right? And kind of I guess their sort of initial design direction was the idea that they were just going to be adding a bunch of classes over the course of the game. Because in Vermintide, you're playing discrete characters. You're playing the character of Barden Gorixon or whatever. You're playing Corellian the Wood Elf, right? In Darktide, you are playing one of an endless number of rejects, like these, conscripted prisoners, basically, who are drafted into fighting, the sort of chaos infection on this world that I don't even Darktide lore sort of stuff. But the thing that they did was they added a talent tree that is like new modern WoW talent trees, where every level you get a point, and you sort of have 3 different specs. And as you kind of move down the talent tree, you can sort of spec to one end or the other, right? So, for instance, you can play an Ogrin. You can play an Ogrin that is about shooting his gun really good. You can play an Ogrin that is about heavy attacking really good, or you can play an Ogrin that's about, I don't know, something else, right? And that system has made the game much more fun and engaging, which I think is also good. And the other thing is they also changed a lot of the inventory stuff. The original version of the inventory was very like loot, just like random loot box kind of bullshit. You basically get a shop, and the shop rotates every hour, and it just has random stuff in there. And then there's also a much better shop that also rotates, that has like legendary items and stuff like that. And what they added was a whole crafting system. So something that you can do now is you can pull off sort of the legendary affixes on certain weapons. You can take those and you can bank them for later. So you sort of disenchant the item, you keep that blessing, and if you want to put that blessing on a future item, you can. And you can also upgrade the stuff. And the way that they do crafting is really, really clever. I love this. This is maybe the thing that makes Darktide's design so good. Throughout the level, there are like chests where you could like pick up ammo and stuff like that. And in those chests, you can find the crafting materials, plasteel and diamantine. And the chests tend to be out of the way in these massive sprawling maps that are all kind of procedurally generated. One of the ways that Darktide is a little different from some of these other sorts of games, for instance, Vermintide, you are playing a discrete map that you can memorize every single time, right, in that mission. If I'm playing Payday, I can memorize that map. I can memorize those heists every single time. Darktide has a it starts in a bridge section. It starts in a non-combat section, right? Then it goes to what I call a bridge section, where you go through a big winding huge map, right? And then you get to an objective section. Typically you'll get to like an elevator or whatever, and then you take the elevator, you get off the elevator section, right? You do a little objective fight for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then you move on to a second bridge section, big sprawling map, and when you get to the other end of that bridge section is a final objective. You complete the final objective, the mission ends. Those 2 bridge sections are actually huge sprawling maps that have multiple entrances and exits. So the game can kind of it's like, imagine you have 8 different entrances and exits. It will direct you to, for instance, you will enter on 1 and you will exit on 6. And so your way of moving through that map is going from 1 to 6, but you can still explore all of the other little kind of like nooks and crannies, right? And there's something about that simultaneously really fits the lore and feel of Darkside in sort of the immersive sense, right? Which is just like, this is a whole planet. The Inquisition is running millions of these missions, right? You are not in discrete locations. You are just in one of many, right? When you are activating this smelter fabricator thing or whatever at the end of some mission, there's a million of these on the planet, because it's a giant Imperium world where the whole thing is like colonized kind of thing. But it also makes the game feel, like kind of like fresh and exciting in a lot of ways. You're picking through these different like sort of like nooks and crannies in order to find everything. And the reason this is a really good piece of game design, in my opinion, is the game really punishes you for going out on your own, for going in like being solo. Specialists will spawn who are, who will incapacitate you one-on-one. Like a guy will spawn and he shoots a net, and if the net hits you, you are just down until one of your teammates can come and grab you. It's a pretty trivial thing to deal with if you're with your party. But if your party is all alone because you guys have spread out because you're looking for diamantine and plasteel, that's like a really deadly proposition. And at the same time, but at the same time, if you all just stick together, you won't get those crafting materials because they're also tucked away. They're in these little corners all throughout the map or whatever. And I think that tension in game design is just really satisfying because it makes the missions tense in a way that in a lot of these co-op PvE, PvE shooters that I like, those missions don't get that intense that often because you memorize them in a way.
Yeah, that
So the
makes
thing
sense.
of the game encourages you to split up and kind of go out on your own, but at the same time, uh, it sort of punishes you for that, and you have to be really on your toes when you are so far away from the group. You could just kind of get fucked. I don't know. All that works really well. Dark Tide is fun. I've been playing it. I would recommend it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I will maybe give it a check if I have the time. Because I have been playing. Like I said, I put a little time into uh Super Mario Wonder. I put a little time into Cyberpunk. I have not gotten past the opening that I played like 4 times. Just because I just haven't put a ton of time into it. Well, so I've been playing Street Fighter. I've been playing uh it's a little bit of Estrella. I do want to go and play some WoW, get my monthlies done, I guess.
Yeah, I need to do that. I did some Mythic Plus the other day, which has been pretty fun. I've been running with Low Kicks and Druid Bull and some of those guys.
Yeah. What else have I done? I went to a Ren fair yesterday. That was super fun. Like a big one
Really?
in the middle of the woods. Yeah. Um, it was like the biggest one in the Northeast, I think. It's like King Richard's Ren Fair. Apparently, it's like 2 to 3 months a year, and the rest of the year it's just like a bunch of buildings that don't have anything in it. Um, I think I went on the last day that the fair runs this year. It was neat. Bunch of people dressed up, kind of hokey. It was like, so there's a Ren Fair that actually is right near where I live. It's in New Hampshire. It's like the only one in New Hampshire. It's very small, but it's like a lot of like independent vendors. So you get like, it feels kind of almost like a con in the sense that the vendors, it's like, oh, this is like a local company that does like shirts, or like there's like some dude who's like clearly had like a 3D printer and was like, I designed this miniature and then my wife makes boxes for dice, right? So it's fun stuff, fun stuff like that. This one, King Richard's Fair, felt, corporate's kind of the wrong word, but it felt like kind of like hokey, right? Like the shop's all like, it felt like it was like, I looked at it, it was like, I feel like I could get this stuff on Amazon for like a quarter of the price, right? Or like off of like Temu or something. Um, my girlfriend put it, like, it felt like a lot of dropshipper stuff, if it makes sense. There was some cool stuff, right? Like, one of my girlfriend's friends worked at one of there's like a tea shop in there, which is nice. They had like high quality tea, and whatnot. But it was still a fun thing to do. Shot a bow and arrow, threw some knives. It was the first time I'd done that in a long time. Um, uh, you know, Walked around, watched some knights joust. The other big thing that I did that I'm happy about is I by going to a relatively local convention upstate, I had met up with these guys, like they're guys that are closer to me that like have this like very like, I think this club is older than I am, where they just like play war games, right? Like like historical miniatures war games. And so like they do a thing once a month. I've been hanging out with them, playing some pretty cool historical war games. Um, which is like a thing that I never thought I'd be into. It's like Warhammer, but like without like the bolters. It's just like, Romans versus
Carthaginians or
Carthaginians.
something.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or like,
Second Punic War has got to be huge for those guys.
yeah, yeah. But like, I don't know if you remember, but you know how when we would go to Gen Con, sometimes we'd walk past the table, which is just like a bunch of like dudes in like sailor outfits and like big wooden boats. Like there was one of the, we didn't have the outfit, but like there were like the big wooden boats on like one of the tables. I didn't play that game, but it's like, yeah, it's like,
Getting.
Yeah, that is super fucking, you
My new obsession coming out. You know what's funny? So I figured out. Have I told you about my birthday? Do you know about my birthday?
What about your birthday?
So this year I surprised Rachel for her birthday. And she was like, I'm gonna surprise you for your birthday. And the last time that she did this, I was able to figure it out. I deduced the surprise, which was actually medieval times, the one that you came down to, actually. I figured out that we were doing medieval times, and she's like, "What the fuck? How did you figure this out?" I have been spending a lot of time, like weeks of my life. We have gone through this thing. My first thing that caught on was I called it pirate LARP. I was like, "What are we doing? I was like, what could it possibly be?" And I said pirate LARP. And Rachel immediately was like, "Oh my God, why did you say that? Why would you say that specifically?" And then I was like, "Oh, well, we're doing pirate LARP. That's what the birthday is. Okay." And then a couple of weeks went by where she just referred to it as pirate LARP every time. And I was like, this is a bit, actually. This is all a red herring. She's fucking with me. It's not actually pirate LARP. And then a pirate costume came to the house that she'd bought on Amazon. And I was like, oh, then it is happening, right? You're not just going to buy this to bamboozle me. Though it would have been a pretty excellent bamboozle if so. And I spent a whole night trying to figure out what it could be. I was like, it's gotta be something. And I also had figured out that we were going to San Diego because she'd been like, would it be okay if we got dinner with my family on your birthday? And her father-in-law lives out in the desert, but her two uncles live down in San Diego. And I was like, it's the uncles. We're going to San Diego. And she's like, yes, okay. And so I had figured out, I was like, it's San Diego. San Diego's a port city. I had known about the biggest ship museum, I think in the United States, is the USS Midway. It's like an aircraft carrier ship museum, which I had known about for a long time, because I just think that shit is cool. And I was like, oh, I bet it's a ship museum. I bet there is a ship. I bet that there's like a pirate ship in the San Diego harbor. And we spent like a whole night where I was just thinking through, and I was like, I bet it's a sail, it's a sailing ship. It's got to be a sailing ship to be pirates. And I was like, it's gonna be like an English pirate ship that survived, right? Just like in some rinky-dink harbor somewhere. And she was like, "Are you sure it's English?" And I was like, "Oh no, it's not English. It's Spanish, because during that time, California would have been like from Spain, like under Spain or whatever." And then I kind of got it in my head. Actually, I don't actually think it's just been in San Diego this whole time. That's kind of ridiculous. What I think happened was it was probably just in some port somewhere in like some Caribbean island, right? My guess was Puerto Rico. I was like, it's going to be in some Puerto Rican port. And then the city of San Diego bought it and turned it into a ship museum. They sailed it through the Panama Canal. That's got to be what happened, right? This kind of thing happens all the time. And then and I just went through the whole thing. I was like, the time period is going to be 1700s, so 16th centuries. It's going to be a galleon, not a frigate, or a brig or any other ship of that sort of like time period. And I just like went through this like whole list. And Rachel had said to me, it's funny because there's one obvious thing that you're not getting, that when you realize it, you're going to feel like such a fucking moron. And I was just like, what could that mean? What could that possibly be? And then last night at 4 a.m, I was lying in bed and I was thinking about this trip. And I was thinking about the USS Midway, because I was like, I knew the trip was going to be for 2 days. And I was like, I wonder if we're going to go to the USS Midway. And then I was like, and then I also remembered that next to the USS Midway is the US Maritime Museum. And I was like, oh, I wonder if we'll go to the USS Maritime Museum or the US Maritime Museum. And I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. The ship is at the US Maritime Museum. And I said that to Rachel at 4 a.m. I woke her up to be like, are we going to the US Maritime Museum? And she was like, yes. But not only was I right about the Spanish galleon, though I was partially wrong. Spanish galleon is from the 1500s, not the 1600s. It is also not the true ship. It is a reconstruction of a ship. And it was also not Puerto Rico. It was El Salvador, I think, is where they found the kind of bones of this ship. But there's also apparently the U.S. Maritime Museum, and I didn't even know this, has a bunch of ships. It has, like a submarine. It has It has the frigate, the recreation of the HMS frigate that they used in the famed boat movie Master and Commander. It has a sailing ship that went up and down the California coast to patrol the California coast when, California kind of went from this like barren frontier wasteland to an actual, like settled territory in the United States because of the gold rush and all this stuff. And so, yeah, anyway, I was telling this story, but that's the story of how I figured out the surprise for my birthday.
Makes sense.
Anyway, I think sailing here's why. Now I remember. The reason that I feel like this is relevant is because I'm going to be one of these guys. I'm going to be an 18th century sailing ship miniatures war gamer when I'm like 40 or something.
I could see it. I could
or you could get like, oh man, you could do like World War II naval combat. I bet there's a million of those where you have like battleships and aircraft carriers.
I was gonna say,
right?
like the classic one is just battleship, but
yeah, I mean, that's. Oh my god, I guess that is the classic one. Listen, the classic one is Axis and Allies.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Although that's not
which I have never played to completion, but I've always wanted to. It's like board game royalty. It's like Twilight Imperium. Have you ever played Twilight Imperium?
No, I've actually never played Axis and Allies either.
I don't know that I have it anymore. I had it when I was a long time ago, and I had it's like diplomacy. I started a million games with Allies, but you never get through it.
Yeah, my version of that game is Napoleon in Europe, which inspired a heavy interest in the Napoleonic era when I was in high school. All right, it says you have it, so maybe you do have it.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if I had kept it all these years. The little Axis and Allies man stares out of the crack in the cupboard. Okay. Yeah, I really love Axis and Allies is a really interesting game because like it's hard to make a good game out of I think it's hard to make a good game out of history because like the United States is just insanely powerful. You know what I mean? This is sort of like the Hearts of Iron thing where Hearts of Iron the way that Paradox approaches that game is they make it about the different difficulties. Playing the US is easy mode in Hearts of Iron. It's like the easiest playthrough you can do. Playing something like Australia is hard because you have to be like, you are up against these superpowers who are just going to like kick your shit in.
Anyway. Generally the way they do it is they focus on like particular like theater or something. Like famously, like the most complicated or like the biggest board game is like one that's just like about the African theater. And like I don't remember what this game is called, but it's famously enormous, famously takes forever to play, and like one like it's so detailed that like one of the things is like the Italians have like a pasta ration that like figures into things. Let me see if I can find this real quick.
Is it the campaign for North Africa?
The notorious game, the campaign for North Africa. The notorious
it's a strategic monster board war game. The longest board game ever published.
The Italian forces must account for extra water rations for their soldiers to boil pasta. Apparently
that's actually pretty great.
Apparently takes 1,500 hours to play.
Okay. I love that they have 6 booklets, one of which is historical background, a 16-page analysis of the North African campaign.
Yeah.
Land game rules of play is 45 pages. Air and logistics game rules of play is 23 pages. Wow. Yeah. This is insane. I sort of want to play this. This is on my bucket list, okay? We have to play the campaign for
All right, so I'm curious, buddy. It says it takes 1,500 hours to play. Let's assume that we're doing this when we're old men, and so we can't pull all-nighters. So let's say we get 16 hours of play time a day. That is 93 days. That's like a third of it. That is 3 months. Are you willing?
Yeah.
Are you willing to give up
home
a season?
Some derps talk about games retirement home.
Yeah. It's like we come down every day and we like somebody's like swept off our pieces like on like day 40. I was like, well, I guess we gotta start again.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Um, is that it?
Yeah, I don't know if I got anything else to talk about. Watched a bunch of Bake Off. I caught up on Bake Off this week. That was fun. Bake Off's good. Um, they so actually just from like a game design point of view, I guess is the best way for me to tell this. And this is like the second time this has happened, but one of the competitors had to leave midway through the episode because she had a migraine. A couple seasons ago, somebody missed an episode because they were sick. I think it's assumed that it was like COVID related or something. And what they do is that they leave the option open that they won't send someone home this week, and they will send two people home next week. Both time or this is spoilers for Bake Off. Spoilers for Bake Off, which I know might be important to a couple people.
Very serious spoilers, apparently. Yeah.
So I won't say who got Star Baker or anything, but they decided this week to not send anybody home. That instead of sending someone home, one person home this week, they'll send two people home next week, which is I guess this Friday. I don't know. I think it's simulcast. I don't know how the schedule works. Because it's a British show that gets put on it. The Great British Bake Off is the English show. In America, it is the Great British Baking Show. Because Pillsbury has like Bake Off, like copyrighted into infinity or something.
Yeah, I know because Netflix has to do a bunch of VFX work in the back end.
Yeah. Did you see that Captain Disillusion video?
Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm referencing.
That is exactly how I found out that it's a different name. Yeah. I will try to remember to put that in the description if people are interested in what I'm talking about. Araya sent me the little Axis and Allies, man.
Listen, I'll bring
that is fucking creepy. Let me see.
I'll bring Axis and Allies to PAX East. We'll play Axis and Allies at PAX East this year.
Okay.
Or next year.
Oh wait, can I do this like real quick? Copy browser.
Oh my god, Orion.
Okay, I'm gonna put this on screen just so people can see this tiny little man. Peeking out. That is fucking creepy. That if I saw that and I didn't know what it was, I would think that I was like, that like you had like a demon in your cupboard.
Pretty funny.
All right.
He scares me. Yeah.
Oh man. Anyway, point. Do you how if you were assuming your only concern was game design concerns, not I assume part of the reason they do this is because British baking show is a much friendlier than like your typical reality show, but I assume there's a bunch of stuff that's written and edited anyway, and I'm sure they put off sending two people home for like ratings reasons, right? How would you deal with someone leaving 1 week of the competition early? These are all amateurs. They're not.
Wait, I'm sorry. So hold on. I may be misunderstanding. No one is going home. No one.
Oh, sorry. When I say go home, so every week they do 3 challenges. One person gets kicked off the show in like your traditional elimination style, right? One person had to leave this week early because she had a migraine and did not recover. And so she did not compete in the second half of this week's show, right? So she went home to rest, right? She will be back next week to compete in next week's challenge.
Okay, and this is why nobody was voted off this week?
Yeah, and it's not voted off. The judges decide.
Voted off,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The judges decide to send someone home, and no one was sent home. No one was sent off of the show this week, and they will send 2 people off of the show next week.
Because it'll be a fairer competition with everybody.
I get like who they do not give explicit reasoning. They just say like because they went home early, we will not be sending someone home this week.
The crazy thing is sending 2 people home in 1 week sounds very difficult to like make that work from a game design standard, right? Because basically what you're saying is now you're playing. It's like playing for first and second is different than play. You just have to be better than last on a normal week, right? But now you have to be better than second to last, which I think is a complicated game design problem to kind of like get through, right? It's sort of substituting. Yeah, I don't know. I guess but you also can't do it on the other end of the spectrum. You can't disqualify the first person from voting because then people just develop migraines when they have a week and they know that they're going to get fucked. Right? They just give up halfway through. You incentivize that if you say that she's immune from voting. If you say that she's immune from voting,
well, it's also, again, it's not voting. It is the 2 judges decide who goes home.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If she's immune from being sent home from the judges sending you, right? Is the question, is that the fairest way you could design the game?
I'm just curious as to what you would do, right? Because like the other part of this is like I think what they're supposed to do theoretically is that you are only judged on that week, right? Like you don't like, if you had a really great last week but a really bad this week, you might get sent home even if you've been consistently the best person. I think they fudged that a little. I think there's usually like 2 or 3 people. There are 2 or 3 people who it could be plausibly be. And like if one person's like a good person with a bad week, they tend to not get sent home on their bad weeks. And I assume you have to combine both weeks of performances into this week because otherwise it's just totally unfair to the people who stuck out the first week.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious how you would approach it. Like I said, I am sure a lot of this is like producers trying to deal with it, right? Like that it's like, it's not just like, gamesmanship, right?
Yeah, and it's like ramping up the tension for the sake of the show. I think that's why I would do it.
Yeah.
Sir. Right? The idea that 2 people are going to get let go next week ups the stakes quite a lot.
Not only that, but like you also don't have to deal with the thorny issue of like someone being sent home this week, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like I think if you like I think it's interesting that they reserve that they could theoretically have sent someone home this week. It's only happened twice, and they've never sent someone home on the week that someone went home. But I feel like that like someone would have to be like very obviously bad because otherwise I think you have to send home the person that like doesn't like you can't it's weird to like have the person go home and like not be like, well, they're disqualified, right? Like they
yeah, I think that the disqualifying that person would be, I guess I would consider it to be unfair. But really what I would want is I would want to create some version of things where I can verify, I guess. I guess the thing I would want to attack is bad actors abusing a medical leave system.
And I think that the nature of the show is that really isn't a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like I also think there's some like secondary concerns. Again, spoilers if you haven't seen the show because this will reveal who got a migraine and went home. The person who who went home for the migraine is also a deaf person, and they have like a signer on set for them. My conspiracy theory was that like they were going to send her home early so they didn't have to keep paying the translator.
Yeah, the interpreter.
Yeah. But like I think from kind of like a I don't think she was ever going home the first week because like that's like just kind of like the because there's always possibly 2 or 3 people that can go home first, or right like you're not going to send home the person like from a writing perspective you're not going to send home the disabled person first because like that's a bad look essentially, right?
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
But outside of that, I just from like a purely game design perspective, I was curious if you had any thoughts, just because like I don't know how you deal with that, right? Like how you make it like plausibly fair for everybody at home. I mean, it seems to kind of work out, but yeah. But it's a good show. It's a good show.
You know what else is a good show, Mango? Sopranos. I finished The Sopranos again. It's my second time. It is harder to watch the second time through because I think, honestly, I'm just picking up on more. Man, that show was rough at the very end. It's hard. That's a hard show to end with. It's kind of like you know how Breaking Bad. You've seen Breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how Breaking Bad. You just get to a point where it's just all downhill, but really it's like 2 or 3 episodes of going all downhill, right? Better Call Saul is also sort of like this, where it's kind of ramping, and then it's like really like final 2 or 3 episodes where things just like nosedive.
I have not seen the end of Better Call Saul yet.
That's true. In The Sopranos, it's kind of the whole final season dive in a way. And there's just like a lot of stuff in it that is brutal. That is real brutal to watch. Yeah.
All right.
And he finally found an Italian sub. The roughness was in part because it made him want sub so bad. That is true. I mean, they constantly showed Tony doing this thing, which I'm envious of, where he just opens up the fridge and he has a fresh sort of packet of gabagool, capicola, right? And he'll just eat slices of it, and I'm just like, God, what a life.
that was like me growing up, right? Like, there is a famous in my family thing where, like, for like holidays, my dad will like he'll get the good prosciutto, right? Like, from the deli, right? And like, my brother and I are not small guys, right? So like, I think we were in college. And like, he had bought a bunch of prosciutto, and like my brother and I had like munched through most of it, and my dad just opens the fridge. He's like, "What the fuck happened to all the prosciutto?"
Yeah,
like,
I'm saying
for a second,
dad,
like legitimately angry, and then then we laughed it off and got more meat. But it was just funny. Anyway, so you were saying,
my dad had. Do you know what an Iberico ham is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
special Spanish, like super cured ham. That's a little bit of what my dad got, an Iberico ham one, and it was just like, it was so easy to just like walk up to it and just like slice off a chunk.
Yeah, so for people at home that don't know, it's a leg on like a rotating rack, right? That like you cut pieces off of individually, correct?
Yeah, I mean technically it's not even rotating. It is super cured, right? It's made from, I weirdly know the history of it. I got really into curing meats a long time ago. Don't ask me why. Iberico ham is made out of pigs who eat only a very specific kind of acorn in the it's a Spanish thing in the Iberian Peninsula, right? They only eat this very specific kind of acorn, which just like makes their meat in a like very particular body hyperfixation. Yeah, in a very like particular sort of in a very particular sort of way, and then it is cured in a very particular sort of way. And like good Iberico ham is gonna $2,000, right? I think the one that we had was way than that, obviously $400 or something like that. But it comes on this board, which is like a cutting board, and then there's kind of like a little rack, and you put the thing in the rack and it holds it there, and you just can slice off pieces of it, and you just leave it on the count. We just left it on the yeah. Oh God, Iberico. Let's go.
Yeah. I have to imagine that prosciutto and Prosciutto for you Americans out there. I have to imagine that and Iberico ham are like relate, like they got to come out of like the same tradition, right? Because they're both like cured pork. Like I remember, I haven't had like very good Iberico ham, but I've had like like little bits of it. And I feel like it's like this. It reminded me.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it's funny. I do like prosciutto. Yeah, I guess they are pretty similar. I feel like it's the thing that makes Iberico ham so special is really that special it's really that special acorn or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it looks pretty similar. If I were to look at Iberico ham, it's like basically the same sort, which is Honestly, I mean, capicola is also sort of similar to that, but it's just much less cured in the it's like capicola is wet essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
Gabagool is a little bit more like a salami than it is
yeah, it's
like.
like a cold cut, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Like
Like
uh
Berjut has like a almost like a jelly like texture, right? Like a chewiness to it that I
yeah,
also
it's almost
think.
like jerky actually is
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
what I think. Which capicola is not like that.
yeah,
Yeah, some derps talk about
yeah,
meat, okay,
yeah,
I guess.
yeah. No, this is some. We're 6 months off of some derps talk about food again.
Yeah, well, listen, we what our next some derps talk about food episode has got to be
All right. Well, we were gonna stop 15 minutes ago, and then we got talking about food.
you know,
So
yeah, for real.
it is how it is. So, I think it's maybe time to sign it off. If you want to email us about anything we talked about this podcast, from Baldur's Gate 3 to Italian lunch meats, you can email us at subdersplaygames@gmail.com or podcast@subdersplaygames.com. You could watch us live at twitch.tv/subdersplaygames or youtube.com/subdersplaygames, where occasionally Orion makes a guest appearance. Uh, rate reviews wherever you find podcasts. All the links are in the description. Buddy, you have anything else you're looking to promote?
I do want to mention that I announced a new game last week. It's called Hello Cruel World. We announced that game last week at the Indie Game Horror Showcase, which was presented by The Mix and Dread XP. And so you can find that Hello Cruel World on Steam. It's a title that we're developing in-house, and it's a VR, which is made by a very cool friend of mine, Joni. And the other thing that's neat that's happening right now in my life is the Sorry We're Closed, which is one of our next titles coming out next year. The Sorry We're Closed demo is up for the first time, which also had a gameplay trailer that was nominated by, or not nominated, that was narrated by me in that Dread XP showcase. So if you want to play that demo, if you want to take a look at the page, free to head over there, give it a shot, take a look.
Speaking of Aquapower games, is there a release date for Universe for sale?
Not yet.
Okay.
But also tune in Thursday, I guess.
Okay. Oh, hey,
I mean, did I say that?
I promise I didn't know anything.
Yeah. Listen, let me just say, if you happen to be around, okay, at 9 a.m. Pacific on Thursday, October, whatever, then you might have a good answer on when the Universe for Sale date is.
Yeah, right. Says a WoW as some Derps exclusive.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, then I'm going to say until next time, dear listeners.
Until next time, loyal listeners.